Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. I'd like to welcome everyone to our webcast, DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition, Why You Should Consider It. My name is Frank Fillmore. I'm a principal in the Fillmore Group. I'm joined today by my colleague, Kim May, who actually put the presentation together. This webcast is being recorded, so I want to let everybody know in case you want to answer a question that you will be recorded as part of it. We'll put it up on the website, on our blog after the webcast, so you'll have it for reference later on, and you'll also have access to the presentation materials, which you're going to see right now. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and begin. We have about half of the complement of students who had registered, so we're going to assume that they're going to be joining us, but we have some introductory material to cover, and I'll do that right away. In addition, I want to mention to everyone who just joined, the GUI interface for the GoToWebinar is represented by a skinny bar in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. There is an orange arrow that causes that to fly out. That'll give you the opportunity to participate in our polls, to raise your hand if you have a question. What I'd like to do is keep this as interactive as possible. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll take an opportunity to call on you then. I prefer that the interface be via the chat so I can see your questions and respond to them. But if we have some time at the end, I'll open the lines up and give folks a chance to ask questions using audio. So with that, our agenda today is an introduction to the Fillmore Group, your presenters. We'll give you a background on Advanced Enterprise Server Edition and IBM's data strategy. We'll talk about the components that are included in the AESE bundle. We'll talk about how you acquire IBM software. And this is very important as someone who's been a DBA working with IBM software, IBM data management software for over 25 years. It is at least as challenging as the technology itself, the acquisition, and we'll talk about the different components and the way that you measure software and the ways that you acquire it. We'll talk about the upgrade paths to AESE. The assumption is that most everyone on this call will have a DB2 footprint of one sort or another today, DB2 for Linux, Unix, Windows, and so we'll talk about how to get from where you are today, especially if you have the Enterprise Server Edition product, and how to move to the Advanced Enterprise Server Edition. So we'll talk about different upgrade scenarios using specifics of the number of units of software that you currently own and the other products that you have licensed and how you combine those together for an upgrade path. We'll talk about more complicated upgrade examples and the upgrade cost and timing calculator. Time is money, and depending on when you do an upgrade could affect how much money you spend or save. So the three takeaways today, the three bullet points, is Frank loves AESE. I think Kim loves it too, and IBM certainly does. It was certainly a wise packaging that IBM entered into, I believe, in the fall of 2010, of combining some of the most popular components that were separately licensed and adding them together into a bundle where you can get all the tooling you need as well as the core database. We're going to talk about how you can upgrade. So we'll make this very specific, or at least as specific as we can, to different organizational scenarios, and then we'll talk about why patience pays. The Fillmore Group, I am a DB2 Gold Consultant and IBM Information Champion. Been a Gold Consultant since 1998 and Information Champion, I believe, since 2009 or 2010. Kim was actually an information champion before I was. The Fillmore Group focuses on DB2 technical support and consulting. So we do implementation work, migrations, version upgrades, performance monitoring and tuning, all the typical care and feeding of a DB2 database on Linux, Unix, Windows, as well as other platforms, System I, ZOS, and DB2 Server for VSE and VM. The Fillmore Group is also an authorized training partner, so we offer IBM authorized training in our classroom in Towson, Maryland, which is just north of Baltimore. And we're an IBM authorized reseller. We're authorized for the Optim product line, the InfoSphere product line, as well as the DB2 data servers, and most recently the AESE server. So the Fillmore Group is a one-stop shop for all of your IBM information management needs. We can help you acquire the software and the AESE appliance. We can help you install it and configure it, and then we can train you how to use it. And I think I mentioned all that, so we won't spend any more time on us. Let's do a dive into why we are here. So DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition, background and components. DB2 AESE was announced in October of 2010. The Advanced Enterprise Server Edition is a superset of DB2 Enterprise Server Edition, meaning that everything that is included in Enterprise Server Edition is also available in AESE with a whole bunch of other stuff. AESE includes popular separately priced features to provide a total package of value. So you get not only the transmission and the engine, but you also get the tires and the steering wheel and all of the other components that make the car run. So the idea is that you get a complete set of feature functionality and you get a much better value, and you'll see that when we start talking about the pricing. So what is included in AESE? In addition to the DB2 Enterprise Server Edition base, we include compression, so what is known as the storage optimization feature, the ability to compress your data. And we'll talk about the benefits of compression, both in terms of disk storage savings as well as I/O reduction. You'll get tools for tuning, workload management, and the Optim Performance Manager. So for those of you who've been working with the DB2 product set for a long time, the Optim Performance Manager is the heritage DB2 Performance Manager, DB2 Performance Expert product set, and the ability to help you manage your environment and get the best possible performance out of it. In terms of tooling, the Optimum Database Administrator and Development Studio, Database Administrator for the management of the database. The Optim Database Administrator takes the place of what had been the Java-based Control Center tooling. Optim Database Administrator is much more function-rich. It is browser-based as opposed to fat client Java-based. And it is cross-database. So right now, the database administrator works with DB2 and Informix, and the plans within IBM are to make the Optim Database Administrator a single point of contact for database administration in heterogeneous environments where you also have SQL Server and Oracle databases. The Development Studio is a product with a long heritage. It started out as the Stored Procedure Builder and evolved through a lot of different name changes, and is now the Development Studio. It is a full function integrated development environment. And we're going to see all these products in more detail, but I want to introduce them now and then give you a sense of what they are, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what each one does. The federation support data virtualization, the ability to issue a single SQL statement and be able to retrieve data from multiple different potentially heterogeneous databases, joining together, let's say, Oracle, SQL Server, and even non-relational databases. There is a subset of federation functionality that is included within AESE to allow you to marry data together between Oracle and DB2. So it's not the full function federation that comes with IBM's InfoSphere Federation Server, but it provides you the ability to focus on Oracle and DB2 platforms. High availability, queue replication for DB2, Linux, Unix, Windows sources and targets. If you currently have the DB2 homogeneous replication feature, certain topologies, certain arrangements of replication are supported for DB2 to DB2. And finally, security for label-based access control. So finer grain tuning of your security environment that is more flexible and more maintenance friendly than traditional views which have been used for security heretofore. So with that, I'm just going to take a pause. I'm hoping that I'm not going too fast. This is all background and expository, but I wanted to give you a sense of what it is that we're going to cover today in terms of feature functionality. Not seeing any questions or any hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So you can see the functionality of DB2 AESE from a dollar standpoint and a similar function stack and what it would cost in Oracle 11 GR2. So DB2 AESE version 9.7 for about $40K would include everything that you would have to separately license: the replication, the developer tooling, performance management, data partitioning, data protection, and compression for about 4 times as much, $160,000. So from the feature functionality of DB2, you're getting a 4-to-1 value for the basic functionality that you need for your database environment and the tooling around it. So quite a value prop if you are currently an Oracle shop and considering migrating. Now that's a whole different topic. There is the Fillmore Group has a specialization in Oracle and DB2 to DB2 migrations. We had just worked on a rather large one for a top 50 international financial services firm in the past year, and they are saving millions of dollars over the life of their database environment by moving from Oracle to DB2. So something to consider. This is not specifically an Oracle to DB2 migration message, but this is beyond. This is focused beyond existing DB2 customers. So the storage optimization feature, deep compression for lower data storage costs. So your disk storage units are a primary source of expense. Data is growing exponentially. We're retaining data for longer periods of time. We're retaining more data. Couple of examples, the banking example that I just talked about. They went from storing 3 months of customer history data online to 12 months, and eventually they're going to move to 24 months, and that's just to be competitive with what their peers and other banking organizations are offering to their customers. So an explosion of the data that they're offering, and then in terms of the amount of data that is generated, if you've seen any of IBM's big data messaging, you know that automobiles generate a huge amount of data. Airplanes, when they're flying, generate a huge amount of instrumentation data. And all that data can be stored for maintenance purposes or to predict catastrophic events or to try to prevent them. So the idea is that we are facing an explosion of data, and being able to store that in a compressed fashion where we can get 40, 60, 80% compression rates is going to greatly reduce your storage costs. IBM also has some messaging around data temperature. So the idea that you can store data on different devices based on how frequently it's accessed. So maybe you'll put your most frequently accessed data, if you're an insurance company and you're storing data from claims opened within the last 30 days, you'll keep that on solid state disk, and then you move all of your historical data for closed claims back to standard magnetic spinning disks. So the idea is that you can save money by decreasing your disk space and storage infrastructure requirements, and also save on I/O. For more information about any of these topics, we have URLs for each at the bottom of each screen, so you can see that. Again, the presentation materials are going to be available on the blog either later today or tomorrow. So if you want some more information about what IBM is offering in terms of compression, you can go there. The performance optimization feature gives you the insight and the ability to optimize the workload execution. So you want to give priorities to certain transaction processing over ad hoc queries. Traditionally, what we've done is we've separated different workloads on different LPARs or different platforms, so that we have our query reporting and our ad hoc decision support done on one platform, and we have copies of data from our transaction processing. With workload optimization, we can actually marry those two workloads together, but use tuning capabilities to ensure that the ad hoc reporting and the analytics don't detract from the performance of our transaction processing. In this way, you can ensure that you meet your service level agreements for 90% of my transactions have to end in 2 seconds or less, things like that. You also get the Optim Performance Manager, which is the ability to monitor and tune your database. And Additional information about both of those products are available at the performance optimization link that you see at the bottom of this page. The Optim Database Administrator is your GUI interface to the database. So if you think about the Control Center Explorer panel that you used to have, the Windows Explorer interface of the hierarchical set of folders, and you open a folder up and you can access all of the objects within that folder. So if I open the tables folder, I see a list of all the tables. The Optim Database Administrator is the ability to manage in a browser-based fashion all that type of functionality. So for less experienced DBAs, for uncommon tasks, things that you're not doing on a regular basis that you can script, the GUI interface, the Optim Database Administrator, is available. And then the Optim Development Studio is the IDE that I mentioned before, the Integrated Database Development Environment for Oracle, DB2, and Informix. So for a single IDE, you can develop applications with any of those three database environments. It increases development productivity. You can go through and on a statement-by-statement basis debug your code and see it as it's executing. It's very important for developers to be agnostic as to the back-end database that they're dealing with, so you can have a single development environment and they don't have to worry about the details of database access. So you can test SQL, XQuery, stored procedures, web services, and Java, all in a single IDE. For more information about the Database Administrator, you can see that at the link provided below. Federation I talked about before. It's the data virtualization. It's the ability to leave data where it is and be able to access that data through an SQL interface. The data could be stored in a relational database like DB2 or Oracle or SQL Server, and I can issue a single query and be able to pull that data back, or even non-relational. That's functionality offered by the InfoSphere Federation server. For AESE, a subset of that functionality, combining data from Oracle, Informix, and DB2 for Linux, Unix, Windows is available. So if I have a mixed database server shop and I need the ability to access Oracle Financials along with SAP, Oracle Financials stored in Oracle, SAP stored in DB2, I can marry those two together in SQL queries and be able to access that just with the functionality that is provided in AESE. If you need additional data sources married into a single view, you'll need to purchase the IFS separately. So this is not the full InfoSphere Federation server, what was originally known as the data joiner capability included all in one. This is not that. AESE does not include that. It does, however, include all the Federation capability you need from Oracle, Informix, and DB2, which may be a large portion of what you need to be able to access. Q replication, data interoperability is what the Fillmore group calls it. IBM calls it information integration, but this is a sweet spot for us. We've worked with replication customers for the last decade or so, and specifically with the Q replication product since 2006. We've worked with a couple dozen different customers in some very high volume transaction processing environments, and Q replication is IBM's low latency high volume data movement tool. So contrast that with Federation, where we leave the data where it is and we go out and get it with a virtualized query. In this case, I want to move the data from one place to another. I may want to do that to create my ad hoc decision support environment. I may want to move data over for an active load balancing environment, so I can have applications accessing server X or server Y and be agnostic as to where the data is stored. So lots of different reasons to replicate data in order to make it available in different places. And so, again, a subset of the Q replication capability is included in the product. So what is allowed is either unidirectional or bidirectional replication between two DB2 for Linux, Unix, Windows servers. So in the example that we see here, DB2A can replicate the database A, can replicate the database B, and then back again. And I could have two separate topologies with DB2 AESE and have the capability I need in order to replicate in those two environments. What I can't do is any sort of tiered or cascading type of replication where I go between A and B and then add a third tier of C or D or E or F. So in the examples that you see on the page, I have a bidirectional replication between database A and B, and then I'm also replicating from E. That would not be supported in the licensing available for DB2 AESE, Q replication capability included. Also, replication from either from or to a heterogeneous source. So you see the example DBH Sybase. I can't. Q replication does not support Sybase as a source, and the AESE licensing would not support Sybase as a target. And then either DB2 from ZOS, the mainframe, or DB2 from System I, other non-Linux, Unix, Windows platforms is also not supported. But again, what is allowed, either the unidirectional, we don't have a graphic for that, or the bidirectional between database A and database B, is probably going to cover 80 to 90% of the use cases that we have seen. And then finally, security, the label-based access control. LBAC gives you the ability to define who can access what data and do it in a more maintainable fashion than in creating a whole bunch of different views. So an example of LBAC access would be a hierarchical organization like a bank. So a teller may be able to see the data just for the customers in that branch. And maybe only see a subset. So they may be able to see account information, but they can't see demographic information like name, address, phone number. They could just see the account and the account balance. The manager of the branch can see all the information about the customers within that branch. The regional manager can see all the branches under his or her purview, and then finally the VP of operations can see the data for all the different branches. This could be implemented with label-based access control more easily than a series of views to build the type of hierarchy that I just described. The LBAC rules are defined, and data access control is managed within DB2 by a SecAtom, a new security administrator within the DB2 management hierarchy. Like sysatom, there is now a SecAtom, and the user will only see when they access a table, the rows for which they are authorized, and DB2 will not provide the other rows, and it will appear that they don't exist. So for more information about label-based access control, there is actually a really nice tutorial on implementing that available on DeveloperWorks, and we've included the link for that down at the bottom. So we're going to take a transition break here just so I can get a sip of water. What I'd like to ask everyone to do is to open the tooling for the GoToWebinar GUI and open that up. We have 33 attendees now, so we have a good turnout. And if you hit that orange arrow and open that up, you'll see a poll that we have defined, which asks you the question that you now see on the screen. Do you currently own DB2 ESE? So I'm going to open that poll, the first question, and I'm going to go ahead and launch it and give you the ability to answer. So I'd like to ask everyone to go into the poll. First of all, open the tooling, hitting the orange arrow that is pointing to the left in the upper right-hand part of your screen. And once you have the opportunity to do that, go ahead and answer the poll. It'll only take a second. And I see the answers coming in right now, and it looks like we're running 2.5 to 1 in terms of the number of you that already own DB2 ESE. So we'll give you another couple of seconds to finish that up. And then while we're doing that, I'd like to see if there are any questions right now, pausing on the feature functionality that I've described of the components of DB2 AESE. If you want, you could go ahead and enter those in the chat. I think that would be the easiest way for us to do that at this point. So it looks like the poll has been completed, and we're seeing 61% actually have DB2 ESE. Oh, it's still changing, so we still have some people updating. So again, about 60-40. Okay, and I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with the webinar. We're running about halfway through where we need to be. And I'm going to go ahead and think everybody's answered, so we're going to go ahead and close that. So moving on in the presentation, now we've talked about the technology, we've talked about the feature functionality and all that is included within AESE. So let's talk about how you get it. Purchasing IBM software. So we're going to talk about PVUs, processor value units. IBM wanted to license based on the power of the server so that they could determine basically how much usage you were getting out of the server and out of their software. It's not necessarily the best way. There are lots of different ways to license software. You can license it based on instance installed. You can base it on the number of records that are stored. There are different licensing paradigms. You can license client software based on the number of seats. For each physical implementation of the software, you license that. So IBM is settled on basically the power of the server on which the software is running as a rough guide to how much value you're receiving out of it. So the more powerful the server, the more usage that it's getting, the more benefit your organization is getting, so you should pay IBM more money. A processor value unit is a unit of measure to differentiate licensing of software on distributed processor technologies. The problem that IBM had was that all processors are not created equal. So in order to say we're going to charge you X number of dollars per processor, customers that had more powerful processors would benefit more than folks maybe with older technology or with less expensive processors. So a processor value unit chart is the ability to, if you want to think about it like a golf handicap, because the Masters is being played today, the way to differentiate between the individual power of processors. So you may see a particular processor is licensed at 50 PVUs and other processors are licensed at 120 PVUs. So IBM defines a processor for the purposes of PVU-based licensing to be each processor core on a chip. Every software product has a unique price per PVU. So we'll see an example, and there is a link to the current PVU table online, so you can see every mainstream processor that is available, whether from IBM or other manufacturers, and determine for your particular servers what the processor value unit of that processor is, whether it's 50 or 100 or 120. Pardon me. We can see an example of the chart. So you can see from AMD, their Optim processor always is rated at 50 PVUs per core. So if you have 2 cores, you're using Optim, and you want to license software for that particular server, and you're going to use all of that server, you would have to license 100 PVUs, 2 times 50 times the number of cores that you have. As you can see, the Intel Nehalem processors are going to be rated higher, or 70 PVUs per core. So again, you count the number of cores per server, multiply it by the PVUs. If you're licensing software for that server, that's the number of processor value units that you would need to license. So, what if I don't want to use the whole server? We're doing a lot with server virtualization these days, so IBM has the ability to extend to customers what is called subcapacity licensing. I'm not going to be using the entire server for this workload. Maybe I'm going to be using VMware images, or maybe I'm going to be using some other software to apportion the server so that I'm only going to be executing DB2 within a portion of the capacity that is available to me. So the licensee can deploy full capacity licensing, that is when you're going to use the entire server and use the calculation that I just described, which is the number of cores times the PVUs, or the subcapacity licensing, which says you are using some sort of virtualization capability, and you are reducing the server capacity, which is going to be allocated to the licensed product like DB2. So beyond the scope of this discussion to get into all the ins and outs of subcapacity licensing, but understand that IBM has full support for virtualization like VMware. So if you want to run VMware images or some other virtualization software to manage use of servers, so you don't have many servers to operate on many small tasks, you can do that. So, IBM Passport Advantage. Passport Advantage, sometimes called PPA, is the IBM offering that covers software license acquisition, which includes both fixed term, that is for a certain period of time, as well as software subscription and support, product upgrades, and technical support. So it is the one-stop shop. If you purchase an IBM software product, you will do it via Passport Advantage. Your organization, for all those people who answered yes in the poll, who said we currently own DB2 ESE, you have purchased that using Passport Advantage, whether you've done it through IBM or an IBM business partner. Once you acquire that software and you've licensed it, you get something called a proof of entitlement. You go to the Passport Advantage website and you actually download the software there. So the Passport Advantage is your means of both acquisition and downloading for purchasing and acquisition of the software that you're using. So more information about Passport Advantage is included at the website link that you see at the bottom of the page, the How to Buy Passport Advantage. So we've talked about three different things. We've talked about what PVUs are and how you measure the amount of software that you're going to need. We've talked about full capacity and subcapacity licensing, whether or not you're going to use the entire server. And then we talked about Passport Advantage, the IBM program by which you can purchase and actually lay your hands on the software that you're using. So we're now going to take a pause. How many do you know, not how many, not give me a number, but do you know how many PVUs of DB2 that your organization currently owns? Can you lay your hands on that information pretty quickly? So again, our second poll, I'm going to go ahead and launch that. So as, and I'm assuming most of the folks on the call today are technical specialists, so as a technical specialist, do you know how many PVUs of DB2 that you currently own today? So we're seeing the flip-flop of the numbers that we had seen for the first poll, even though 60 to 70% of the folks own DB2, there's a vast majority who don't know how many PVUs that you currently have in productive use. Right now we're seeing about 3 to 1 no. 25% say yes, and the other 75% say no. And again, while we're waiting for folks to respond to the poll, if anybody has a question you'd like to raise your hand, please go ahead and do that, or put a question in the chat and I'll try to get to that. And I think we're pretty much done the poll, and again we're seeing almost a 4 to 1. Most people don't know how many PVUs they have, so that would be a homework assignment to find out how many PVUs of DB2 that you have at this point. So, we know what the value prop is. We know we can get all of these other feature functionality components of managing a DB2 environment bundled into a single product and license it in a certain way. We know how to acquire software now. We know how to count how much software we need. Even if we don't know what that number is, we know how to count it. And we know how to acquire it using Passport Advantage. So what are the upgrade paths? If you are in that 60% that already owns DB2 ESE and you would like some of the additional feature functionality, how do you go after it? So the current packaging, as you can see in this eye chart, there's a lot of detail here, and I'm not going to go over it line by line, but you can see the type of capability that is either available natively within the packaging, or which can be added through separately processed features. Now, you can see from left to right DB2 Express C, the Community Edition, which is available for free download. That is also limited based on, and we don't have a chart for this, but if you go to the DB2 Express C website, you're limited as to the operating systems on which you can run, Linux and Windows, and also the number of processors within the server. So DB2 Express C is not meant to be run your business type of software per se. It's more focused on development environments, try and buy, those types of things for crowdsourcing of applications. DB2 Express has the ability to add separately priced features. You can see the Data Studio add-in and the Optim Database Administrator. DB2 Workgroup Edition is the departmental database. You can add to that the federation server and the replication server, so the ability to virtualize the data and the ability to move the data from one place to the other. And then finally, the DB2 Enterprise Edition, the one that was available, the high-end product that was available through October of 2010. You can see all the check marks and the types of things that were included, such as multidimensional clustering, query parallelism, the ability to access data on another platform, such as DB2 for ZOS or DB2 for System I. All of that was included in the DB2 Enterprise Server Edition, and then all of the other components in the yellow boxes that you can see that were added. Now we're going to see some things that are familiar. We've talked about the storage optimization feature. We've talked about the performance optimization feature. We've talked about queue replication, which is the DB2 homogeneous replication feature. All of those are now components which are available, baked in DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition. So, how do you get to DB2 AESE? So the easiest, fastest, simplest way is if you have additional requirements within your organization for DB2, you can license new PVUs for DB2 AESE, and there is a part number for that. If, on the other hand, as 60% of the respondents in the first poll said, we already have ESE, there are upgrade part numbers that you can add the additional functionality. So you can actually purchase upgrade licenses, also by PVUs, that factor in the products that you already own. So let's take a look at some examples. So for new purchase DB2 pricing and part numbers, you can see that the DB2, if I were buying today, and these prices, by the way, are list prices. Your mileage is going to vary based on a number of different factors, based on the entitlement level that you have as an organization, how much you bought in the past, how big an IBM customer you are, etc. But in order to give you a framework of understanding what the relative value was, we decided to use the list pricing. So don't go back to your boss and say, hey, this is going to cost our organization $464. That may very well not be the case, but we can get you the specific information if you'd like. So for DB2 ESE, the part number is D as in dog 55IULL, and the cost per PVU is $417. The cost for DB2 AESE, the part number that you see there, is $464. So for a delta of $47 per PVU, you get all of the other functionality. You get the storage optimization feature, performance optimization feature, LBAC, Data Studio, the database administrator, the Optim tools, and the performance optimization feature. All of that is included for about a little bit more than 10% more than you're paying now. Now, you might have already licensed some of those programs separately, and you will see a big delta because they cost a lot more individually than they do as part of the AESE bundle. So, if you want to use the trade-up part numbers, these are also sold by PVU. You can see the chart that we have here that says what is the upgrade from ESE as a base to AESE, or what is the cost for ESE plus some of the existing features that you might have already separately licensed. So for example, if I want to take an existing DB2 ESE base and move to AESE, the upgrade part number per PVU would cost $218. If I already own the storage optimization feature that I purchased with ESE and I want to upgrade to AESE, the upgrade part number at this point only costs $176 or $40 less. And you can see as we move down the chart, ESE plus the performance optimization feature, that's the SOF and the POF that you see there, the D0GBTLL part number would cost $176. The upgrade part number to get you all of the functionality for AESE if you already own the Enterprise Server Edition and the performance optimization feature. If you own ESE and SOF and POF already, for $153 for the upgrade part number, you can move to AESE and get all that functionality. So we're going to see some specific examples that may be a muddle, but hopefully we're going to clear it up. So our first example is Kim's Kites. Kim currently owns DB2 ESE, and she is moving to AESE. Kim's Kites is a business located in Beachtown. She currently owns 200 PVUs of Enterprise Server Edition and wants to move to Advanced Enterprise Server Edition. So the Advanced Enterprise Server Edition trade-up part number would be D0GBRLL, one of the ones that we saw on the preceding chart, the one in the left-hand column right past the descriptors, ESE to AESE. We're going to use that part. It's going to cost her, list price, $218 per PVU. So the cost would be $218 times the 200 PVUs that she owns already for Enterprise Server Edition, and she will then have a full entitlement to DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition and all the feature functionality that you saw earlier in the presentation. Second example, Donna's Donuts. So we are moving from, again, ESE to AESE. Donna currently owns 400 PVUs of DB2 ESE, and she wants to add 200 more PVUs for a total of 600 PVUs of AESE. So how would she do that? She would use the trade-up part number for the 400 PVUs of ESE that she already has. So as you can see in the description in the bottom, Donna's Donuts will purchase of 400 PVUs of the DB2 AESE trade-up. That's the D0GBRLL, the same part that Kim used on the preceding slide for Kim's Kites. And she'll purchase 200 additional PVUs of the base DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition. So she will have basically 400 PVUs times 218 and 200 PVUs times 464. Pardon me. Now, it starts to get a little bit more complicated. Tammy's Terrible Towels. Obviously have a presentation developer who is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Tammy's Terrible Towels currently owns 400 PVUs of DB2 Enterprise Server Edition and had separately licensed 400 PVUs of the compression or storage optimization feature. So she wants to move up to DB2 Advanced Enterprise Server Edition for all 100 PVUs. At this point, she's going to do a trade-up of 400 PVUs, but this time she's going to use a different part number, the D0GBSLL, which we had seen on the preceding chart, which is the upgrade part number for a customer who already owns Enterprise Server Edition and already owns the storage optimization feature. But at this point, the list price for those upgrade PVUs are only $176. So you're saving about $40 over the licensing, the upgrade license for the base product. So in this example, Tammy will purchase 400 PVUs of DB2 AESE trade-up for the part number which comprises the ESE and storage optimization feature upgrade path. And very important here, she will stop paying for 400 PVUs of the storage optimization feature, and she'll have a full entitlement of DB2 AESE.
And Frank, I don't want to jump in and interrupt too much, but I think one of the things I want to point out is on some of these slides we have both the we have two part numbers for the DB2 ESE. We have a D55IULL and then the subscription and support number. When if you're looking at the specifics on how to actually calculate your upgrade amount, you may have there are a lot of different part numbers for DB2 ESE because you may have purchased it as in a competitive situation, you may have upgraded from Workgroup Edition, and once you get past the first year of ownership, so there's different part numbers for the first year that you buy it, but once you get past that first year, then you've got all these different unique subscription and support numbers. So when you look at these lines, I was trying to make this as simple as possible, but even looking at it now, it is very confusing. But if you have any trouble, please ask. Somebody can help you with that.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to the rest of the audience?
Everyone.
Everyone. Okay, that's good. Thank you for that clarification. And yes, you're right. The part number that you may see is the S&S, standing for Subscription and Support part number. Let's say you've owned DB2 ESE for 3 years. So in 2009, you purchased the part number D55IULL. But for the past 2 years, you've been buying the subscription and support to maintain the ability to open a PMR or service request with IBM. And that subscription and support part number is the E020CLL. So thank you very much for the clarification. I was just focusing on the trade-up, not from the existing part or the subscription and support part number. So in example 4, Renew's Range Rovers. Renew owns 800 PVUs of DB2 ESE and 800 PVUs of the DB2 Performance Optimization feature and wants to move up to DB2 AESE. So very similar type of situation to the preceding one. In this case, a different part number, a different trade-up part number. This is D0GTSLL, but still $176 per PVU. So Renew will purchase 800 PVUs of the trade-up part number, and she will stop paying for the 800 PVUs of the performance optimization feature, and she'll have the full entitlement of AESE, including all of the other features such as storage optimization feature, the Optim tooling, and the replication and federation capabilities. So our last example, Blair's Bears. Blair had acquired 600 PVUs of DB2 ESE and of the storage optimization feature and of the performance optimization feature sometime in the near past. And so now she wants to upgrade all of that entitlement from ESE to AESE, and she can do it for $153 per PVU. So again, a different part number for the upgrade path. When you currently own ESE and SOF and POF, she'll purchase 600 PVUs of the D0GKKLL part, and she'll stop paying for the 600 PVUs of SOF and POF, and she'll have a full entitlement of DB2 AESE. So, just a pause here. I'd like to ask if there are any questions. I know that there were a lot of different part numbers. There were a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different upgrade paths depending on what you currently have. So the first step, if you are seriously considering this, is to take an inventory of what you already own, and that'll help drive what it would take to get you where you want to go. My colleague Kim, whom you just heard a second ago, has actually put together a spreadsheet tool to help you do that. And if you'd like, we'll have contact information at the end of the webcast. You'll be able to reach out to Kim, and she can work with you individually to gather the information you need to be able to make the business case for your specific situation. So what we wanted to do was help you understand the level of complexity based on the different products that you might currently own, the different upgrade paths, and the different feature functionality. But now we're going to add one more dimension, and that is the dimension of time and the fact that patience pays. So subscription and support. We talked about S&S a second ago. IBM assesses an annual fee on the anniversary of the original purchase, and this entitles you to future upgrades and the ability to get IBM support if something goes wrong with your IBM software. S&S runs typically about 20% of the purchase price. Failure to maintain your S&S means you cannot upgrade or use the PMR system. You can reinstate your S&S after a lapse, but it tends to become very expensive. So the recommendation is if you're running your business on IBM software, keep your maintenance current, because if you run into a problem, IBM support is great and they're there to help you. If you have lapsed, they will not because you haven't paid for it. So an example that we have here, again back to Kim's kites. Kim owns 200 PVUs of DB2 ESE and wants to move to AESE. Kim bought the 200 PVUs in December of 2010. They paid $83 per PVU for subscription and support on the license anniversary date of December of 2011, so just about 3 months ago, for a total of $16,600. If you upgrade today, let's say on April 5th, 2012, about 3 months after you renewed your S&S, the cost is $218 per PVU at list, or $43,000. What happens to the S&S that you've already paid for? The answer is the S&S at $83 per PVU is $16,000 that we said. S&S is paid in advance. You pay for a year's subscription, almost like you're subscribing to a magazine, and that subscription runs for another year. So you will have paid in advance $16,000 to carry you through to December of 2012, but it's only April of 2012. The prepaid amount amounts to about $1,300 per month in this example. So if Kim were to buy the upgrade in April of 2012, she would forfeit 8 months of prepaid S&S. That's not a good idea. Basically $11,000. So you would be forfeiting $11,000 and paying IBM $43,000. The new S&S anniversary becomes the date at which you license the AESE, so that you would be hit with a subscription and support renewal on April of 2013. So this is the example to help you understand why timing is very important. You want to focus on your AESE upgrade options at the anniversary date of your subscription and support. Now, this is not something that most salespeople are going to tell you. People want to get deals in as soon as they can, and if your anniversary date is in December and it's April now, you're likely not going to hear the messaging, hey, why don't you wait for another 8 months and then we'll work on a PO, although that would certainly be in your best interest as a consumer of software. So we have another example of Blair's Bears. This was example 5, and the key part here would be to, I think we actually see a repeat of a slide. Yes. So in this case, if Blair owned the ESE, the SOF, the POF, and she wanted to upgrade to AESE, what if she had purchased all of these different components at different times? So the original allotment of 200 PVUs of ESE in June of 2007, 400 PVUs of ESE in March of 2010, 600 PVUs of the storage optimization feature in July, and 600 PVUs of performance optimization feature in May of 2011. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Kim. What would you do? Because my head hurts. When would be the sweet spot to do the upgrade?
The whole thing here the reason that I put this up here is that it does get very confusing, and finding the sweet spot is going to be all about mapping out which dates things are expiring and what the upgrade cost is, and probably at the end of the day getting a special bid put together so that you get some recognition from IBM in terms of the price that you ultimately pay for what you have already prepaid for support. So gotcha. If you have a situation like this, please get someone involved. I'd be happy to help, but get someone involved that can actually help you put this into a spreadsheet and map out what your best deal is going to be.
Exactly. So that you get the greatest benefit from the prepaid S&S that you've already paid, and you get the feature functionality that you need to move up to include all of the other components that you saw from AESE. Now, beyond the licensing costs, there are obviously other business drivers. Maybe you have a business driver that says that we need the replication capability. We want to move to an active-active topology, and we want to do that as soon as possible. We have a customer who's a retailer whose busiest time of the year is October through February, and they want to do an implementation of new replication topology to be installed and completed and tested and running in production by August. Well, that blows all of this out of the water. If you need it today and you want to get it today, then we can do that. But understand from a financial standpoint how you may be impacted based on your subscription and support renewal dates, as well as the other upgrade part components. So, the next question that we have, and our last poll of the day, is, does your organization own more than just DB2? And so I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. This is not a yes-no question this time. This is actually tell us what you have, so we can see if you already own the storage optimization feature, the performance optimization feature, the DB2 homogeneous replication feature, or the Optim database tooling. And I'll give you a second.
And Frank, one of the reasons I wanted to include this.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of the reasons I wanted to include this particular poll was that I think one of the things that may be happening to customers is that they are looking at the move from Enterprise Server Edition to AESE and sort of overlooking the fact that they may have purchased some of these things separately, and they're not factoring those into their purchasing decisions. When you're looking at what you're paying, even if you bought something 2 years ago, when you're paying that subscription and support, you're paying 20% of what you paid for it every year to have that license. You want to have IBM take that into consideration when you look to make that upgrade move.
Absolutely, absolutely. So good point. Thank you very much. And our poll, about half of the folks online have polled, and not everyone online owns the software. We have some IBMers and we have some other folks who won't be voting. Pardon me. But looking at the poll, we could see that at least half of the folks who are responding own the storage optimization feature, and then about a third own any of the other three components. So I'll go ahead and close this poll. I think everybody who's going to take the opportunity has done so, and then go ahead and share that so everybody can see the poll results. As you can see there, 54% have the SOF, and then 38% have POF, replication, and the Optim tooling. So amazingly, that brings us up to just about 1 p.m., our rated time for this presentation. I want to wrap up here things in just a second. So the most important takeaway, although it's not one of the 3 bullet items that we'll have up here at the end, is the necessity to create an AESE acquisition plan. Kim, as I mentioned, has a questionnaire, which is basically in the form of a spreadsheet where you can fill in the blank to say the number of PVUs that we own of this particular component is this. These are the dates when our subscription and support renewal comes up, and then select an optimal purchase date and be able to get some pricing for your particular situation based on your entitlement level from IBM. Again, we used list price throughout this presentation, but you may be entitled to substantial discounts. And then you can talk about your internal business requirements. As I mentioned before, you'll have other drivers besides the price per PVU based on what your organization needs to accomplish. Maybe you need to move to less expensive storage right now, or you need to compress the data that you're storing today because your storage is so expensive, and that's something that trumps the cost per PVU of moving up to AESE. And then working collaboratively with Kim, you'll be able to define 1 or 2 options that make this purchase really attractive to your organization. So we can give you some help with completing the AESE questionnaire, getting the expiration dates on your subscription and support, and choosing that optimal purchase date. Once you've acquired the software, we've worked with customers who bought AESE to exploit the new feature functionality. We've worked with customers on the Optim Performance Manager and the replication environments that they have stood up using some of the specific functionality that they had not had in the past. And as always, we can help you with training. We offer training in many of the components that you've seen here today at our IBM Authorized Training Classroom in Towson, Maryland. We can also bring training to your site for private on-site classes. So, summary, the 3 takeaways. We love AESE. We think it's a great bundle. We want you to understand how your organization can upgrade. It is not trivial, but it's certainly something that we can help you work through. And the fact that patience pays, if you do it at the right time, you would not forego a lot of subscription and support that you've already prepaid. Thank you very much for your time today. Again, Frank Fillmore of the Fillmore Group. My telephone number is here, so you can give me a call if you have any questions. I'll leave the webinar up for a minute for any questions that you might have that I did not cover in the presentation today. And there's a short poll, a short survey as you leave the webinar. Just 2 questions. If you could take a second to answer those, we'd really appreciate it. So thank you for your time. And like I say, I'll be here for a few minutes to see if there are any remaining questions.
Hey, Frank, I think you did a really good job. I wanted to just add that I think for other people that are still on the line, we did send out a questionnaire to some folks, and that was basically to see if we can help get the first step going and also help you if you have 1 or 2 or 3. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of data that you need to gather to get a quote. If you have just a couple pieces of that, we can help fill in the blanks. So don't hesitate to ask. I mean, we think this is a really good opportunity, but we want to make sure that people that are taking advantage of it are doing it well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that summary, and thank you for putting this presentation together. I think it was really well done. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I'm not seeing any raised hands, and I'm not seeing any chat questions, and I am seeing a few folks dropping off. So with this, I'm going to sign off today. Again, the presentation, the actual audio and the presentation materials for download will be available on the blog either later today or tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Frank.
Sure.